Not yet. I don't know that we'll necessarily. All right. Good morning. It's April 24th in Senate Judiciary, and we have a a Senate resolution that we're going to be discussing. And actually, no, since we do have Mike, if you do want to join us and just share an overview of the resolution.
Good morning. For the record, Michael Chernick, Legislative Counsel. And this is a Senate-only resolution with respect to the recent ICE detaining federal immigration authorities detaining of motion to Holly. And just as a quick, as I think you're all probably aware, he is the U.S. green card holder who was going supposedly for his final citizenship interview up in Colchester, and federal immigration authorities detained him immediately. He's still in Vermont based upon a judicial order. And this is a resolution that is addressing the issues of due process, the lack thereof in that situation specifically. Doesn't deal with anything beyond his personal background or activities. It's exclusively on the due process issue of his detention. And if you want, I can run through it clause by clause. If you'd like, I'm happy to do that.
I don't think we need to go clause by clause, but I guess though.
In a brief summary, it tells the narrative in a neutral fashion, as a resolution will normally do. It tells the background story, the fact that he resides in White River, that he is indeed a green card holder and has been for a number of years, and that he thought he was heading to Colchester to have his final round U.S. citizenship interview before he actually take the exam and become sworn in as a U.S. citizen, and that there were federal agents who detained him, and that some were masked, as has happened in other instances, and that the three members of the congressional delegation have issued a strongly worded, much of which the language that I have here was taken from that. Within a few hours, issued a joint statement condemning what had happened, and that this resolution is specifically asking that he be afforded due process. It's not making any prejudgment concerning the specifics of his situation. It's exclusively on the due process issue, and has no background concerning his political background or activities or school activities. It's exclusively on the due process.
So just to make sure it's clear, is there anything in this, in your opinion, that could affect, if this is an official statement that comes out of the Senate, is there anything in here that you think could affect the process that he's going through or have any sort of?
My guess is, and it's only an educated guess, I could be wrong, but this is simply going to be seen as a political statement of support for due process in a broader sense. I don't see it interfering in any case per se. It's just requesting that he be given due process. It doesn't, as I said, it doesn't talk about the specifics of this case at all. When I worked with Senator White on that, we were very would represent Cole, where the House process a different day of exactly the same version as this, but on a single chamber basis. We were very clear that this was only a statement of concern that due process wasn't exercised, and that he should be entitled to due process. Does not address any issues beyond that specifics.
Great, thank you. Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, we were very careful about that in drafting. And then Fran and I went over to Fran just to be double saying that, and she concurred.
Great, thank you. Committee, any questions or comments for Ledge Council or in general? Senator Norris?
I do. I guess I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this, Mike.
Sure.
When you talk about
Which clause you mean?
someone, the very first, the very first one, actually, the very first one, the Senate was, or said SR 13, we say we afforded.
Hold on, SR. When they begin, whereas
Resolution relating to. In the next to the last line where it says strongly advocate. First of all, this is a very concerning situation. Okay, I agree with this, but when you say he be afforded due process under the law and released immediately from detention, What does that mean exactly? What is due process of the law?
What would mean that
He's releasing that due process?
warrant and that he's
No, Mike.
the court hearing and judicial process, that sort of thing.
What's he missing from judicial process? My question.
What is missing now is he was just grabbed. It was never a warrant. There was never a hearing first. And of course, you're aware right now that, Judge Sessions, federal Judge Sessions has put a halt on a transfer to Louisiana. And there will be obviously judicial, hearings in the days ahead, but what it's saying is that it should have gone through a normal process, immigration detention process, not grabbing, Mr. Mojave literally off the unexpectedly.
Did Judge Sessions release him?
Judge Sessions at this point has not released him.
That's my concern. He's been before a judge. What
Well,
start?
Judge Sessions has, Judge Sessions was not released him. Judge Sessions has said that it can't be transferred, which is what federal immigration authority.
But he hasn't released him.
Not at this point, not at this point.
Okay, so this reads to me where it says due process and the law and released immediately. So we're more or less saying that would be our due process.
Exactly.
Just released immediately.
Well, no, it's be a combination, it's a combination of the two, that it would be a hearing and a decision.
Okay, thank you.
And if whatever changes you want to make, as I said, I'm here to make whatever changes you want. So decide.
Senator Reynolds.
So just following up on that, just so I'm clear, the way I read it as afforded due process first,
Yeah,
and then after that due process is afforded, the outcome of that released immediately
that's
upon the findings of the court,
right.
right? Is that the way? I read it?
For example, if he hadn't been charged, if in the meantime were charged with a crime, for example, that would be another matter, but there was no crime charge, there was a federal charge brought. And that was the concept of the to be released immediately and then just go through a process of the Fed wanting to charge him with a crime and then bring him back in. That was the intent of the sponsors.
I think Senator Lowski had her hand up and then Senator.
Well, and I think one of the underlying challenges too is that part of due process is that there's a warrant for your,
Yeah.
and there is.
There was no warrant. Yeah, right.
And that still, to my understanding, has not been
No,
produced.
there is not a warrant unless something's happened in the last overnight, which I believe, I suspect not.
And my understanding of these sorts of cases prior to this administration was somebody would be given, a hearing, and then they would be released. They wouldn't be detained and in jail while the hearing.
There would have been a warrant, there would have been a notice of a hearing, sure.
And so,
And charges.
yeah, so for me, the release immediately is, this man is in jail now, has done nothing. They're just adjudicating his, trying to figure out between the federal government and Judge Sessions what is going to be allowed. He shouldn't be in jail during that time, in my way of thinking. So I think one way to read it is the way Senator Matos does. I read it that due process is going to be continuing, but there's no reason for him to be sitting in jail while it continues. So release him immediately and continue the process of hearings and whatever needs to be done.
As I read it, him being in jail is an affront to due process, given that there are no
Yeah.
charges and there was no warrant.
All of the above.
And then I refer back to why did Judge Sessions release him?
Judge Sessions.
Therein lies my problem.
Yeah.
I don't think we know everything about this, and I'm not picking and choosing sides whatsoever. But it was before a judge, and all of this, we know it took place, but why did he release it?
Status conference isn't for determining if somebody can be released. That was the hearing that was had, I think, on Wednesday, actually yesterday, yeah. But if somebody is going to be released, there's typically a motion that's filed, then a hearing that's scheduled. Perhaps that's being done. I don't know what his attorney is thinking, but, it's not a immediate, hard and fast thing that at a status conference, a judge is necessarily going to release somebody from detention. There could be a petition for a writ of habeas corpus, motion to review bail, that's even applicable. But these are things that take days, if not weeks, to get drafted up, submitted, and then scheduled for the court. Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
I will stay here for the balance of your discussion, should you at the end decide if you want to make any changes to the document.
Thank you. Like I was saying earlier, I can't remember if I said this on the record, but when it comes to resolutions, my approach is that if we're all able to read and understand the words that are on the page, then we can decide how to vote our own way. Just assuming everybody has read this at this point. So in that case, I would entertain a motion to vote this on paper.
So I would move that the resolution, be voted out favorably.
Any further discussion? Okay. Senator Mattis, you could call the roll, please.
Senator Norris,
No explanation.
Senator Bihowski,
Yes.
Senator Bruce,
Yes.
Senator Matos, yes, Senator Machine,
Yes.
4-1-0.
Who, well, actually, explanations.
This is a very concerning incident for me. I'm not sure I can wrap myself or everything has transpired here. I'm still confused with how it took place. I don't want to see it taking place again in the future, but I don't feel comfortable presently with not knowing everything that's involved in this situation. That's my point.
Who wishes to report this? Thank you, Mike. Oh, Senator Flo. Great. All right, well, that wraps up what we have for 9:30. We'll be back at 10:45. 10:45. Yes.
Huh?